Alright, so now you're ready to use TotBlocks to learn about the foundational building blocks that make up the Earth. In this video, we'll go over how to download the 3D models and how to 3D print TotBlocks. To 3D print the models, we have to take the 3D models provided, which commonly have a 3MF or STL file extension, and pass them through a slicing program or slicer, which generates a G-code file that the 3D printer can actually read. If this is your first experience with 3D printing, check out some tutorial videos on YouTube to learn more about the 3D printing process. I recommend watching Thomas Sunladerer's 3D Printing Basics 10-part series on 3D printing. The fastest way to download the 3D models is through Printables, a 3D models database. Simply search TotBlocks on the main printable site or type in this link. Once you're there, scroll down to read the description and take note of which files you'll need to download, depending on the crystal structure that you want to assemble. We've also included a starter set in the assembly instructions, which can be used to build most of the crystal structures in this series. Next, scroll back up and click on the Files tab. You can then download specific models or download all of the models. Some of the files, specifically those for the O modules, are provided as both 3MF and STL files. If you are using Prusa Slicer as your slicing software, we recommend using the 3MF files since they already have support enforcers placed, and we've tuned the print settings for the Prusa i3 MK3S 3D printer. However, if you are using Cura or another slicer, you may need to use the STL files instead and manually add in supports. In terms of slicing the 3D models, the easiest way is to use Prusa Slicer, which is a free and open source slicer developed by Prusa. Simply open the 3MF file in Prusa Slicer and add a few instances of the model, since you'll need several pieces of each model. Then press Arrange to automatically arrange the models. The most important part of slicing TotBlocks is the use of supports, which varies depending on the model and potentially the slicer. The T modules do not need supports. However, for the O modules in Prusa Slicer, it is important that the supports are set to Support Enforcers Only, because otherwise supports will be generated in the slots where the pegs connect, which are nearly impossible to remove. Supports are only needed under the widthwise pegs of the O modules. It appears that the automatic supports in Cura work fine for the O modules, but we haven't tested this yet, and you may need to add support blockers where the vertical slots are. We usually print the single octahedra without supports, but you could try experimenting with supports as well. Finally, the vertical pegs should be printed laying sideways with supports. Another important thing is to not use a brim because this will interfere with the peg and slots as well. Finally, it's recommended that the first layer speed be slow, as we found in testing that this is usually where most prints fail. Although we've tuned our settings for a Prusa i3 MK3S 3D printer, the settings may vary from printer to printer. You may need to adjust the print settings, filament settings, and printer settings depending on your printer. Please carefully check over these settings and supervise the print, as further adjustments may be necessary. As a disclaimer, we cannot be held responsible for any damages that occur as a result of printing TotBlocks. When you're happy with the slicer settings, press Slice and then Export G-code to save the G-code file to your computer or directly onto the SD card for the printer. Now you're ready to 3D print TotBlocks. When printing TotBlocks, be sure that the first layer height is not too low because this will cause elephant's foot and prevent the blocks from connecting properly. Other than that, make sure to keep watch for the first few layers, as this is typically when print failures will occur. The printer that we're currently using in our lab is the Ender 5 Pro, but the original TotBlocks were designed on a Prusa i3 MK3S printer. Finally, if you want to modify the source code for TotBlocks or have any issues with building TotBlocks, check out the TotBlocks repository on GitHub. The source file that was used to generate the models is TotBlocks.scad, which can be edited using OpenSCAD, a free and open source parametric 3D modeling program. Any questions can be posted in the Discussion tab, and issues can be flagged in the Issues tab. Finally, for more technical and theoretical details, you can read and reference the peer-reviewed article linked to TotBlocks. Now that you've successfully 3D printed TotBlocks, you're ready to build the foundational building blocks of the Earth. To learn more about how to build the mineral structures, take a look at the Assembly of TotBlocks video and the other videos in this series that review each of the mineral groups.